Ooh, that looks tasty.
Good news! You're a superhero. Bad news. The government has cut your funding. Good news! The local cafe has a single opening for a waiter. Bad news. The rest of your supergroup applied too. Welcome folks. Today the Hungry Gamer is back with another game review. This time it is of Born to Serve by Shoot Again Games. Now this is a very streamlined, simple worker placement area control game. And as you heard in the intro, this is a game where each player is a superhero competing for the single waiter job at the local cafe. Now, please do make sure that you have turned on the Klingon subtitles. If I make any mistakes, that's where you'll find the corrections. And if you already know how to play the game and just want to skip ahead to my final thoughts, then you can do that by jumping to the timestamp that is appearing on the screen right now. All right, for those of you still with us, let me give you a quick rundown of what it is you are seeing in front of you. I have the game set up for, as I said, 2 players. We have the Human Pinball, and we have Madame Mystique. And in a 2-player game, you're going to set out 3 tables. You'll see each table has spots where you can place your workers or your service markers. And then it has a space for the lunch or dinner customers, and I'll explain that in just a second. Then you have your tip tracker. This is how much money you've made in tips. And then over here, we have 4 different employees, and there's various numbers that you use depending on how many players you have. These are just some samples where you can place your service markers here and gain whatever benefit is listed. I will just note that all the green ones have benefits that take place during the scoring phase, and the red ones have benefits that take place immediately. Additionally, we have each player has a Fortress of Loneliness, and in their Fortress of Loneliness, they have these various service markers. These are, for all intents and purposes, your workers. There's a normal side, and then there is a plus $1 side, and I'll explain that in just a moment. We have our first player marker. We have the Phantom Realm, and after you've used one of your workers and actually scored fully with them, they disappear to the Phantom Realm. And then we have our lunch and dinner customers. There are 2 kinds. There's green and there are yellow. I'll just grab one from here from the bottom. The green ones are your regular customers, and so when they come out, they'll be flipped up this way. And this 7 here, that is how much tip you can possibly make for each score that you do on the table. And the green cards are always played face up because they're regulars and you know what it is that they're going to buy. They always come in and get the exact same thing. While the yellow cards are not regular customers, and they could be either higher than the regulars or they might be lower. You might wind up with some rich person trying to impress his or her date, or you might wind up with a bunch of college kids who are pretty much stiffing you. They're a little more of a gamble. And at the top we have lunch because you start the day during lunch, and as you go through you wind up at the dinner phase. When you set up the game, you always start at lunch and you take 1 of each and you place it out on the table. And again, as I said, yellows go face down and greens will go face up. So the only regular we have is right here, and you will get $6 for each tip that you tip out. The first thing that you do when you start is each player gets 5 of their service tokens, 3, 4, and 5, and then they place 1 of them with the $1 facing up. And what that does is that means that once you're going to get a chance to earn some extra tip once per turn. And the game itself is actually very, very simple. You're going to take turns placing your markers on the tables, and you always have to start at 1 and you end with 3. And so we'll just say, for sake of argument, that Human Pinball is going to go first. He has the marker, and he'll start out and he'll place his 1 right here. And then Madame Mystique gets to go, and we'll say she places 1 right here. And then we'll go ahead and say that the Human Pinball will place his 3rd one here. Now, I went ahead and did all on one table right away, because at the end of the round, after everyone's used all of their service markers, what's going to happen is you are going to score any table that is full. When you do that, you'll flip over the card, and that's how much money you're going to make. $8 plus any dollar that is face up. So this table is going to be worth 9 per scored marker. Now, what does scored marker mean? I will explain that right now. I mentioned that there's a little bit of area control in this game. And so we'll see that the human pinball here has 2 to Madame Mystique's 1 at the end of this round. All the others would be out there somewhere. That means the human pinball is going to get a chance to score, and it's his choice. He can say, yes, I'm going to score 2 of these markers. And he can only score 2. If he had all 3 there, he could still only score 2. And so each one would be worth $9. And so he would actually jump all the way up to $18 and bully for him. And then both of these would go away into the Phantom Realm. He no longer has access to them for the rest of the game, unless he does something that allows him to gain them back. Let's say it was flipped over and it wasn't a number he liked. Maybe he only wants to score 1. And so then one of his things would go to the Phantom Realm, and then he would only score half. And the one that he didn't use would come back to his Fortress of Loneliness. Meanwhile, Madame Mystique had 1 there. She's not left empty-handed. She gets to bust the table, so she gets some of the value. So she would actually get half of the value, and you round that down. So instead of $9, she would get $4 for the 1, and up her score goes. And this would go back to her Fortress of Loneliness. She has not lost the use of that service marker. And now, as you can see, I've clearly just kind of jumped ahead. I didn't place everything out there, but I just kind of wanted to give you the idea of how that works. Any table that's been scored, you discard the card that was there, and then you refill it from the deck. And that's a green one, so that one would be face up. Now, that is almost the entire game. You're simply going back and forth, servicing these tables. Each of these markers represents the time that you go to the table. You refill a drink. You take a paper crown to the birthday kid. You clean up the spill that the birthday kid made, or whatever it may be. And the idea being that you want to have the most presence there so the customers give you the bulk of the tip. Now, I said there's also these cards up here. If for some reason you don't want to place your service marker on a table, because you either can't win it, you don't like the look of it, you can always place one up here. So I could come and place this one where the bartender is, and then at the end of the round, as you see here, during the scoring phase, each of the below service markers score $4 for that player. And you don't lose this marker. So that would come back to your Fortress of Loneliness. So it gives a little bit of variety. This is kind of the worker placement. You can either just go straight for the most money, or you can play around with things up here. Then at the end of the turn, you simply pass the first player marker to the next player, and they have to go first. Now, there is one more thing that I have to mention, and it's probably what everybody's thinking about is, well, that just feels like a game of waiting tables. There's nothing super about it. And that's why these cards are flipped over this way. You each can play once per turn one of your 2 powers. So for example, the human pinball here, if he still has one of his service markers still available, he hasn't used all 5, then instead of using one, he can remove one of his service markers from a table and place it on a different table. So you're just moving it to try to open up a space or try to win one that it didn't look like you were going to win, or who knows. Or he can do a bank shot. When you place a service marker on a table, place it one position higher than the current available open position. Why that's important is because it is possible, if you look here, to have a tie. Right here we have a tie on this table. It's 2 and 2. And so then you have to look at who's in the higher position. In this case, human pinball's on the 4. So that 4 means that human pinball would win the table and have the choice to do the scoring. And so this allows him to skip a number, because you always have to place on the lowest number on the table. But if pinball uses this ability, he can jump up to the 4 here. Once you use your ability in the round, you simply flip your card over and you know that you've used it. And each of the heroes does have a different set of 2 abilities. You'll see Madame Mystique here. She can look at 2 yellow customers, and then she can return them to their original tables or secretly switch them between 2 tables. So if we had this here, she could use that ability and look at these two and say, I know I'm going to win this table here, so I'm going to make sure the more valuable money's there. Or I know that Pinball's going to win this table, I'm going to make sure he gets the crummier customer. Or change of mind. You can replace a green customer with an unused yellow one of the same type, lunch or dinner. Draw 2 yellow ones from the unused stack and choose one, place it face down, and discard the other. So that's just a way to look at this and try to get a better customer there, or a worse customer, depending on who you think is going to win. And then she would flip over. Now, the game continues until you have gone through all of the cards here. And you see it's a decently sized stack there, but it's not that much. And remember, as you go through, every time you score a table, you're slowly losing your tokens. And so in theory, that does mean that in a larger game, if you're scoring a lot, you might find yourself with fewer tokens than other people at the end of the game. That's why something like the washroom attendant, someone you might want to do, he's pretty much the only way that you can get a token back from the Phantom Realm is by using the washroom attendant, which is great. You get a token back in your Fortress of Loneliness, but you're not playing out here. And we have our nice, easy to read scorecard here. If you get all the way to 125, you simply flip over and you start again with that. So again, it's pretty simple. And so like I said, that's the entire game. That's it. So what do I think of this game? I have to say that I think this game does a good job at introducing these concepts of worker placement and area control. Is this a complicated game? No, not at all. It's actually very simple, but it is clean. It is streamlined. It is fast. And at the same time, it has some real choices. I like that. Also, I really like the art. I just adore it. I think it's fantastic. I think all the heroes feel distinct. I think they are definitely asynchronous, but it's not so complex. You're going to spend a long time trying to figure out what each one does. I think that's very, very well done. Most importantly, I really like that this is a fast game. This is probably the fastest worker placement, definitely the fastest area control game I've ever played in my life. It's quick and it's easy. I really enjoy all of that. Now moving on to some stuff that I think isn't as strong as it could be. And I know some of you are going to hear these things I'm going to say and you say, well, Hungry, that's not really fair. And it might be true. And I'm going to start with the first one. While I think this game really nails this theme of feeling like a waiter and running around during the lunch rush or the dinner rush, I think it misses a little bit the idea of being a superhero who is a waiter. I don't really feel like that. Well, yes, I do have some powers. I don't feel like I'm a superhero who's suddenly trying to be a waiter. I don't get that feeling that you would get where if Superman goes in and tries to be a waiter, oops, he smashed a glass. Or he accidentally used his heat ray because he was trying to heat the food up that was too cold and he set it on fire. Or whatever it may be. None of that's in there. You just feel like you're a super waiter, not a superhero who is a waiter. Now, I don't think that that is something that is intended to be in this game because, as I said, this is a gateway, simple, streamlined game. And I think there is great potential for an expansion to kind of add some of that stuff. There's so much fun that could happen. For example, what if one of the super groups who did not have their funding cut, maybe they come in and they sit down and then somehow you have to deal with serving the people that were your colleagues yesterday and now they get to laugh at you and tip you poorly as you're trying to serve them. And things like that. I think there's plenty of opportunity. And then the other thing that's not quite there for me is a purely personal opinion. And this comes from the fact that I personally play a lot of games. My wife would probably say far too many games. And for me, I'd wish there was a little more to this game. Wish there's a little more strategy, a few more options. Now that said, if you're not someone that's very familiar with these genres, then this is going to be plenty of options. So it's probably not fully fair of me to put it in something to be improved upon, more something that I put out there for people who already are very familiar with this genre. It might be a little too simple for you. So there you have it, folks. That is Born to Serve. I think this is a game that is for anyone who likes superheroes but is looking for a different spin on them, and for someone who likes superheroes but is tired of the Avengers level superheroes. These superheroes remind me of ones that came out of the old Tick cartoon, who are heroes but not really. They're just like half a step up from normal person, like Arthur in the Tick, if you're familiar. He's just a normal dude who happened to find a flying moth suit. So, and I think that's fun. I think they really feel that way, and I really, really enjoy that. And I think if you're looking for an off-center superhero game, this is something that you should definitely check out. This is a game for anybody who just loves incredible art, or anybody who wants to start to understand the worker placement genre or the area control genre and just really have a lot of fun while you're doing it. There you have it, folks. That is Born to Serve. It's a quick, fun, simple, streamlined worker placement area control game with your C-level superheroes. These are the heroes that aren't even allowed to carry the Defender's jocks. They wish they were Iron Fist. They don't even dream of being someone like Thor or the Hulk. So, as always, if you are familiar with this game and I made a mistake in that 2-minute description of how it works, let me know with a timestamp. I'll get that into the Klingon subtitles. If there's anything you thought that I could have simply done a little bit better, do let me know and I'll do my very best to make sure that happens in future videos. As always, if you found this video useful, please like it, subscribe, share, all those amazing things, because I got plenty more coming for the rest of the year. As always, thank you so very much for watching and have a wonderful, wonderful day.